If you enjoy this video, consider supporting us on Patreon for just $5 a month. Click on the card in the upper right-hand corner for more information. They have done it. They have done it. Hey guys, this is Julian of Julian Gray Media. Today's video, we're going to be taking a look at this brand new and extremely exciting synth. A little bit of backstory on this one. I went to NAMM this year, back in March, and I actually went on behalf of this company called Hooke Audio, and I might put a little clip of this thing I shot with them at the end of this video so you guys can check it out. It's essentially a binaural microphone that you wear around, and it acts as a Bluetooth headset. It's really cool. Like I said, I'll probably put a video at the end of the video and maybe a link down in the description below. Thank you for bringing me to NAMM, by the way. So yeah, at NAMM, I ran into my friends at Kilohearts, and they have given me NFR products in the past. They sent me their entire Kilohearts bundle a few years ago, and I use it on so much stuff these days. Their transient shaper especially is one of the best in the game, if not the best transient shaper in the game, and I love their distortion, their saturator, and a ton of their other plugins. But at NAMM this year, something really piqued my interest, and I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, what is that? I have to know what it is. And they were showing a beta version of this new synth called Phase Plant, and in Kilohearts fashion, the name is kind of like a pun / meme. Saturator's another one of their ones. So Phase Plant to me was like a modular version of Serum or something similar. It's a very, very capable synth, and I think probably the most capable synth on the market right now. It's incredibly powerful, and there's videos of these people making these massive, elaborate, like one-note songs where if you press one note, they use the LFOs within the plugin itself to modulate, the pitch and create like sequences of notes and stuff. This one guy made the entire, I think it was Game of Thrones theme on a thing where if you press one key, then it'll play the entire Game of Thrones theme within one synth instance. I want to say there's a preset in there that's literally the dial-up internet tone in full, but that's really not important. These are very niche things that nobody's actually going to use it for. What's really cool is that it's just a modular synth. Phase Plant is like Serum if it didn't have a static signal path. When we get into the synth itself, I'll explain it more, but essentially you can sort your effects in whatever order you want. You have more options for routing, like you can use auxiliary channels, you can group certain oscillators together. There's multiple types of oscillators, not just wavetable. And as far as I know, this may be incorrect, but I'm pretty sure there's as many oscillators as you want. They call them generators in Phase Plant, and I believe it's the same for LFOs. You have an unlimited amount of LFOs. Don't quote me on that. It may not be correct, but I haven't run into the ceiling yet, and I've used quite a few. So without any further ado, let's hop into Phase Plant so you guys can see what I'm talking about and get started. Now, before someone brings it up, this 362 days trial is an actual glitch. I actually have an NFR copy from Kilohearts, and apparently the NFR versions are a 1-year NFR, and it says a trial. It's actually not a trial. I'm using a registered program, so before anyone brings it up, this is a legitimate version of Phase Plant. It's not just the trial I downloaded for the sake of the video. Okay, so as we load in here, you can see this is the Phase Plant interface, and it looks very bare bones right now. That's because it is, and it allows you a lot of freedom to build your own sounds. Now, if this is daunting to you, you can always load in a built-in preset. That's obvious, every synth has that. But I don't think that's what most people are going to use this plugin for. I think this plugin has a lot of expandability. We can take a look at this preset just to get an idea of what's going on here. This window here is the generator window, and like I said in the introduction, there is several different types of generators. There's wavetable, analog, let's see what else we got. A sampler, a noise generator, and then obviously we have distortion filter, group, auxiliary, and mix and output for routing reasons. Then we have the effects window, to the right, and as you can see, it's not just a single chain like Serum, where all of your effects are stacked vertically and in the same signal path, where the only variance you can do is the order in which they're placed. You actually have multiple effects lanes in Phase Plant, and you can actually adjust the amount of each lane that's going to the master here. And as you can see, you can actually adjust where things are going too. So instead of just going, let's actually follow the path here just to make this a little bit more easy to understand. These three oscillators, analog 1, analog 2, this filter here, and this distortion, as well as this analog, I guess a third analog, are all going into this output here, and it's being routed, as you can see, send to lane 1. You can actually, send this directly to the master if you want. You can send it to lane 2, 3, etc. And from lane 1, it's going to lane 3, and from lane 3, it's going to the master. But you can set this up however you want, and that's what makes this so cool. So you can actually send this to lane 2 if you wanted to, run a reverb here, but you don't have to do that. And you actually have, oscillators over here that are independent of this whole chain, and you can go to a separate output that goes only to lane 2 or lane 3 and build these incredible patches that you couldn't do in something like Serum or Massive that have a static signal chain or signal path. Then when we get down to the LFO section, it's all of your modulators. If we go to the far right here, we can add them, and as you can see, we can do an LFO, we can do a random modulation generator, we can do an envelope. Obviously, we have other things similar to Serum that we can use, note, MIDI pressure, MIDI velocity, and then we have utilities. I haven't dove too deep into these. I'm just kind of trying to cover the basics in this video. I don't want to dive too heavily into the plugin itself. That can be for you to explore, and maybe if the plugin really takes off and people really dig it, we'll do some sound design tutorials on Phase Plant a little bit down the line on the channel. But to start things off, I think I'm actually going to clear everything and start with a new preset. Okay, so we're going to start off with a generator. I'm going to go ahead and add in an analog. And as you can see, it's a very similar format to any synth you'd ever use. You have a saw wave, a square wave, a triangle wave, and a sine wave for the basic, 4 wave shapes, the basic waves, if you will. And that's for an analog oscillator. And if we play, it sounds pretty good. Pretty good saw. Here's a square and a triangle and a sine. You know the gist. Obviously, you have unison and unison detune. If we set the unison to 5, we get that super saw effect. Detune, spread over the stereo image. Unlike in Serum, where you don't have an independent control of spread and detune, you have that in Phase Plant, which I really dig. We have an 8-voice polyphony down here. That means we have up to 8 voices to use, and we're only using 5 of them here. That's fine, and then as you can see, it's routed into the output here. This is almost our ADSR for Phase Plant's first analog oscillator here. As you can see, we can shape that if we wish. Very, very graphic and very user-friendly, similar to Serum. That's really why I like it. I can see a lot of beginners learning to sound design on this program. I'm going to set the decay a little bit shorter, and then maybe we'll add in a second oscillator just for fun. Let's do a wavetable. As you can see, it's very similar to Serum in that you can see the 3D wave shape. And as you can see, this is actually having no effect on the output right now because the output is not routed, or I'm sorry, this is not routed to the output. So to route it to the output, I'm going to drag this above, and then it's, as you can see, it's going both of these with the plus into the output. And now we have the wavetable and the analog both going out. And to make this more obvious, I'm just going to go ahead and drag the semitones up 5. Or up 7, a fifth. Okay, so that is our wavetable. And as you can see, it's very similar to how you would control it in Serum. Here's your frame. This is similar to the wavetable position in Serum or Massive. And you can set your gain out of here. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit to compensate for both oscillators. And we can set our unison, similar to how we did in the analog. We're now at 10 unison, So I'm going to turn up our polyphony to 10, just so we don't hit, just so we don't go over the amount of voices we have to work with here. Let's play an octave down. Actually, let's try no unison on the wavetable. I just want a very monophonic sound there. And let's try adding some effects to this. So as you can see, the output is defaulted to lane 1. I'm going to try to send this through a filter. We can use the filter built into Phase Plant. And by the way, if you're in, or if you've been engaged with the Kilohearts Snap-in ecosystem, it's essentially this modular ecosystem of all of their plugins. You can use any of the plugins that you own from Snap-in automatically here. That includes Faturator, all of the plugins in their bundle, you know, compressor, and their incredible transient shaper. So I'm going to grab their filter. I believe this actually comes with the bass line of Phase Plant. Not a bad filter at all. Give it some Q. And I'm just going to make a basic pluck here. So to make a pluck, as you know, you need an envelope modulating this cutoff to do this. And to do that in Phase Plant, all you have to do is go down to the modulator section. It's kind of similar to the envelope and LFO section in Serum. It's just kind of unified into one section here. And we can grab that and we can actually select envelope. And we can create a little bit of a pluck shape. Drag that sustain down, drag the decay shorter, and drag the release shorter. Now what I'm going to do is actually click on this orange plus button, and then we can actually add this to the cutoff here, and then we can drag it up to show the amount that we want to modulate. So if we drag this all the way up, it's going to modulate all the way. I'm going to drag the cutoff down. I think that might be a little bit too much modulation. And maybe it's a little bit too fast. So I'm going to let that decay go out for a little bit longer, maybe like 1,000 milliseconds. Second's a little too long, maybe like half a second. Then let's try something to make this a little bit more interesting. Maybe we'll try the incredible Faturator, the awesome distortion plugin from Kilohearts. And then we'll go ahead and add in some reverb as well. Let's go ahead and try that. Faturator's a bit much. I'm going to pull that drive down and that fuzz down a little bit. That's sounding pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and add in a compressor. See if we can't catch some of the small nuances of the reverb and bring them up to volume. And again, this is just how a compressor would normally work. And yeah, as you can see, this is very powerful. So we can actually route this to lane 2, or we can have an entirely different lane of effects just by adding in some more oscillators and a different output. And we can go to lane 3 or lane 2, or we can go directly to the master if we want to. We can also bypass this entire lane here. We could also just go to lane 2, and let's say we throw a comb filter on it. I don't know why. Or we can just go to lane 1, and instead of going to lane 2 from lane 1, let's go to master. And then we have our cool pluck again. And then as you can see, we can actually disable an entire lane of effects, which I think is pretty cool. It's kind of like a really awesome grouping mechanism instead of having to manually disable the ones you want to disable in something like Serum. That's why I really consider this the Serum killer, because I think it has everything that Serum does, and it does it a little bit more elegantly and a little bit more optimized with a little bit more flexibility. So I love Steve Duda and I love Xfer, but they're really going to have their work cut out for them trying to keep up with Phase Plant. So one last thing, I'm just going to add in an LFO just to show you how that works. Again, it's the same as any other LFO, and the thing I really love about Kilohearts is that everything is very visual and easy to understand. I'm just going to grab in a saw wave, and I'm going to change this to one shot. Actually, we'll leave retrigger on. I'll shift the phase over. Maybe actually we can draw in a custom LFO, why not? Very similar to how you would in Serum. Why not? It's actually going to create like a very plucky, sharp kind of shape like that. And then let's go ahead and drag this. I'm going to put that phase back where it was. I think double clicking reverts it. Yeah, and then I'll attach this to our cutoff filter. And then I'll set this to sync, and I want this to sync up with a 16th note. Disable one shot, and maybe we can make that a little bit longer. I think I made it a little bit too plucky. And a little bit too much modulation too. Maybe too fast. Let's try eighth note. And I like this a lot, that you can select each parameter individually, so you can actually adjust the time signature here instead of cycling through all the different time signatures. Really, really, really intelligent way of doing an LFO. We can try all the different modes. Maybe we can put some delay on there. I'm going to do a delay and then put it before the compressor, and actually before the reverb as well. Actually, let's stick the compressor on lane 2, and then we'll route lane 1 to lane 2. And then let's turn ping pong delay on and reduce the mix pretty low. Sync it to maybe say 4/16. And there you go. Now we have ourselves a nice little pluck out of Phase Plant. So if you guys are interested in some more videos on Phase Plant, maybe getting some more in depth with the actual oscillators themselves, there's so much capability here. We can obviously modulate the wavetable, or we can modulate the sync. Like, we have so much power in Phase Plant. It's incredible. And all the macros at the top. So I can keep talking about Phase Plant for days, but I just want to show you guys this. It's something that I've been following through beta ever since I saw it at NAMM this year. And I'm so excited for the world to finally get it. And it finally came out last week. So go ahead and pick it up. If you're interested in picking it up, I think they have a subscription version where you pay $10 a month to get it. If you want to buy it outright, make sure to use my Plugin Boutique link. It'll be in the description below. If you do pick it up through Plugin Boutique, the channel gets a small kickback of whatever you spend, and it really helps out a lot. This video was not sponsored by Kilohearts. I just love those guys to death, and they make some of the most incredible audio products, I think, in DSP today. So go ahead and download Phase Plant. If not the full thing, then maybe get the demo or the subscription, and I think it's going to change the game of software synthesis. I'm Julian of Julian Gray Media, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye-bye. Here's the clip from NAMM on behalf of Hooke Audio. Hey guys, this is Julian from NAMM. This year, this company called Hooke Audio sponsored my trip here. What you're hearing right now is a binaural audio recording of the actual convention center. something crazy going on over there. And yeah, this is a really cool startup company. It's essentially a Bluetooth headset with binaural microphones built into each ear. But what you're hearing is what I'm hearing in real time. And there's a microphone on each ear. And if you know binaural audio, essentially what it does is it puts a microphone on two sides, similar to this, to emulate a human head. And then when you listen back to it, it sounds like you're actually in the room. Hopefully, if all goes right, you should be hearing what it sounds like to be at NAMM right now. So yeah, this is the Hooke Verse. Hooke Verse, the Verse by Hooke, and it's a Bluetooth headset with a binaural microphone built into it. And yeah, really, really cool idea. In the meantime, I'm gonna take a walk around NAMM and we'll see how everything sounds.